A quiet home in the suburbs turned into a scene of horror overnight. The Shaughnessy family, once a symbol of success and unity, was shattered by an unspeakable act. But who could harm such a loving family and why? Stay with me as we unravel the chilling details behind the Shaughnessy family tragedy. Welcome back to Chilling Fireside Stories. I truly appreciate every like, comment, and subscription. It means the world to me. Today we're diving into a harrowing story of betrayal and unimaginable loss, the case of the Shaughnessy family. But before I begin, please note that today's story contains sensitive content, including themes of family tragedy and violence. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Now grab a warm drink and let's begin. In the early 80s, destiny brought Ted Shays to a video arcade in Phoenix, where he met Corey Garman. The connection was instant, filled with shared interests and dreams. By the late 80s, their love story blossomed into a marriage, and they moved to Austin, Texas, to start a new chapter together. Ted Shays, born on February 7, 1963, was the youngest of three brothers, Tim, Ted, and Tom. Growing up in the sunny outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona, Ted's heart raced for speed. Fast cars and go-karting were his passions, embodying his fearless spirit that his brother Tom often admired. Corey Garman, with her meticulous eye for detail, became an invaluable partner in their venture. Together they founded Gallery Jewelers, a high-end jewelry business that became a symbol of their partnership. Corey's expertise lay behind the scenes, appraising gemstones and diamonds, while Ted's charismatic presence captivated customers with his friendliness and charm. Their combined efforts turned Gallery Jewelers into a thriving business, reflecting the strong bond and mutual respect they shared. Ted had a magical way with people, exuding natural effusiveness and a magnetic pull that drew others to him. He was the kind of person everyone wanted as a friend, fun, engaging, and endlessly positive. His enthusiasm for life was infectious, and he had the remarkable ability to strike up a conversation with just about anyone, making them feel at ease instantly. Ted's charisma and genuine nature extended beyond business interactions. They were a testament to his generous heart. His positive qualities shone through in every aspect of his life, making him a beloved figure to all who crossed his path. His charm and warmth left an indelible mark on everyone he met, embodying a spirit of kindness and connection. By the turn of the millennium, Ted and Corey had built a remarkable life together. Their jewelry business flourished, and they owned a beautiful home on Oliver Drive, just a stone's throw from their shop. They had two Rottweilers, Bart and Brina, who were like children to them. Ted often brought the dogs to work, where they were affectionately known as the store's big shop assistants. Ted and Corey's love for each other was evident to all who knew them. They were the perfect couple. Despite their seemingly perfect life, there was one thing missing. They wanted to be parents. In the spring of 2000, they traveled to Ukraine and adopted a 16-month-old boy named Nicholas, whom they called Nick. It was love at first sight for Ted and Corey, and Nick quickly became the center of their world. Their home was filled with love and they were devoted parents. Ted was a proud father and he and Nick were inseparable. Nick inherited his father's love for fast cars, and they spent countless hours go-karting together. Ted, who had a passion for race cars, often took Nick to the track. Nick also had an entrepreneurial spirit, likely inspired by his parents. As early as middle school, he started selling candy bars from his locker, and by high school he had a successful car detailing business with several employees. In 2015, Nick met Jacqueline Edison, a girl who had recently moved from New Jersey to Texas. They hit it off immediately and became inseparable. After graduating from high school, they moved to College Station, where Jacqueline studied engineering at Texas A&M University while Nick worked as a day trader. Every weekend they made the 2-hour drive to visit Ted and Corey in Austin. However, on the morning of March 2, 2018, their lives were shattered. At 4:30 a.m., Ted and Corey were awakened by their dogs barking. Although it wasn't unusual for the dogs to bark at wildlife, Ted decided to investigate. He armed himself with a .45 caliber gun and went to check, while Corey went back to sleep. Moments later, Corey heard a gunshot followed by a barrage of gunfire from the kitchen. She grabbed her .357 revolver and prepared to defend herself. As the intruder approached the bedroom, she saw her beloved dog Bart shot and killed in the doorway. Corey fired into the doorway until she ran out of bullets, then hid in the closet and called 911, fearing the worst.
Travis County 911.
Liz, there was shooting. My husband got out of bed, my dogs were barking. There were shots fired.
Shots were fired for him?
No, I don't know. Help me.
Corey told the dispatcher she could hear moaning and didn't know if it was Ted or an intruder. All she could think was that if it was Ted, he was dying alone and she wasn't there with him. Despite her fear, the dispatcher insisted she stay hidden until the police arrived. After 15 minutes, the dispatcher informed Corey that the police were outside. She left the closet, walked through the kitchen and saw her husband of 30 years. Ted was found lifeless on the floor, surrounded by bullet casings in a pool of his own blood. Corey, in a desperate attempt to get help, rushed to the front door to let the first responders in. But when she opened it, there was no one there. Not the first responders, not the intruders, nobody. The police had mistakenly gone to the wrong house, her neighbor's house. Eventually, they made it to the correct house and met Corey at the front door. She was completely devastated, her entire body shaking. They took her to the squad car while first responders went inside and pronounced Ted Shaughnessy dead at 5:14 a.m. after being shot 4 times. When Corey called her son Nick, who was 19 at the time, to tell him that his father had been murdered, he was in absolute disbelief. Nick and his girlfriend Jackie immediately made the 2-hour drive from College Station to Austin, Texas, to his parents' house, arriving around 8 a.m. They moved in with Corey for the next 3 months to support and comfort her during this incredibly difficult time. Corey and Ted had been married for 30 years, and without Nick and Jackie moving in, Corey would have been alone in the big house where her husband was murdered. As word spread throughout the community about the murder, there was an outpouring of support for the Shaughnessy family. Investigators got to work immediately, searching through the house and the crime scene in the kitchen where Ted had been shot. They found 2 different calibers of shell casings, indicating that both a .40 caliber and a .380 caliber handgun had been used, suggesting there were likely 2 shooters involved. There were no signs of forced entry, but they found an open window in Nick's old bedroom with the security screen removed from the outside, believed to be the attacker's point of entry. A fingerprint found on the window was sent off for testing. In the same room, they found a box for a .40 caliber handgun in a dresser drawer, but the gun was missing. This was the only thing missing from the entire house, and one of the guns used in the shooting was a .40 caliber handgun, suggesting it could have been the Shaughnessy's own gun. Given the Shaughnessy's high-end jewelry store and beautiful house, investigators initially considered the possibility of a robbery gone wrong. They interviewed neighbors, including a woman named Kim, who said everyone in the neighborhood knew the Shaughnessy's owned a jewelry store with valuable items. Police also interviewed Nick, Corey, and Jackie, who all handed over their phones to aid the investigation. Nick's phone records confirmed his alibi, showing he was 2 hours away in College Station at the time of the murder. Nick also helped with the investigation by providing access to the home security system through an app on his phone, as his parents weren't very tech-savvy. The security system hadn't been set at the time of the murder because Ted and Corey only activated it when they both left the house. The security system, despite not being activated, provided valuable insights. It indicated that Nick's old bedroom window was opened at 4:27 a.m., followed by the sound of glass breaking in the kitchen at 4:44 a.m., the exact time Corey recalled the shooting. This meant the intruders had roamed the Shaughnessy house for 17 minutes before Ted confronted them. During this time, they could have been scouting for valuables, given the family's high-end jewelry business and wealth. However, nothing was taken except the .40 caliber handgun, making the robbery theory doubtful. Investigators grew suspicious. There were no signs of forced entry, and the only missing item was the handgun, likely used in the murder. Why would an attacker arrive unarmed, knowing the family had guns? The 3 cars parked in the driveway and the barking dogs further suggested the intruders were aware the house was occupied. These inconsistencies led investigators to explore other angles. Nick provided potential leads. He recalled a 90s incident where Ted, running a pawn shop, shot an armed robber who was later imprisoned. Nick speculated about revenge, but this theory fell apart with no evidence linking those individuals to the murder. Nick also shared his experience investigating their neighbor Kim's husband, who was suspected of infidelity. Kim paid Nick to track her husband, leading him to hotels and placing a tracker on the car. Investigators pondered if Kim's husband sought revenge, but Kim dismissed the idea, asserting he was unaware of Nick's actions and not capable of murder. Curiously, the police initially went to Kim's house, suggesting the intruders might have mixed up the addresses. With these leads turning cold, attention shifted to Corey. Investigators found aspects of her story and post-murder behavior questionable. They wondered why the attackers spared her life, knowing she was in the house and had fired at them until her ammo ran out. The investigators had many questions for Corey. They wondered why the intruders didn't demand valuables, especially given the Shaughnessy's wealth. They also inquired about the missing .40 caliber handgun. Corey explained that they had many guns for protection, some of which were at the jewelry store. However, the gun was not at the store or in their house, raising suspicions. Corey was the sole beneficiary of Ted's $1 million life insurance policy. She tried to claim the insurance money soon after Ted's death because the business was struggling without him. When she contacted the insurance company, she discovered she was a suspect in her husband's murder, adding to her already overwhelming grief. Despite the constant surveillance by unmarked police cars, Corey tried to stay strong. Friends described her as one of the strongest people they had ever met. The support from her son Nick and his wife Jackie was invaluable during this difficult time. In the midst of this turmoil, Corey learned that Nick and Jackie had secretly married 8 months earlier. Although initially surprised and somewhat hurt by the secrecy, Corey embraced Jackie and welcomed her into the family. She even threw them a party and gifted Jackie a diamond pendant. The celebration provided a much-needed distraction from their grief. Nick and Jackie were determined to keep the jewelry business running. Nick took on responsibilities at Gallery Jewelers, and Jackie paused her studies to help out. They were committed to preserving Ted's legacy. The family's business Facebook page proudly announced that Nick would continue his father's work. Meanwhile, the police received fingerprint results from the open window, matching an employee from a window installation company. Although this lead seemed to fizzle, the open window was still the believed entry point. Nick had confessed to using the window to sneak in and out of the house during his younger years. He also mentioned that his friend Spencer knew about this window. Spencer, Nick's best friend, had officiated Nick and Jackie's secret wedding. Nick described Spencer as less fortunate, working a job he disliked and juggling studies at Texas A&M. Given Spencer's knowledge of the Shaughnessy's wealth and the house's layout, he became a person of interest. Moreover, Nick had given Spencer a .380 caliber handgun, further raising suspicions. Spencer, Nick's close friend, was forthcoming with detectives. He admitted to knowing about the window because he and Nick often used it to sneak in and out when they had drinks at the Shaughnessy house. Detectives searched Spencer's house and car, finding the .380 caliber handgun Nick had given him. However, ballistics confirmed that this gun was not used in the murder. Phone records showed Spencer was at home during the time of the murder, clearing him as a suspect. This line of questioning led detectives to consider Nick Shaughnessy as a suspect. Nick had provided Spencer's name and described him as financially strained and familiar with the house. Nick's actions since the murder, coupled with his eagerness to help and steer the investigation, raised suspicions. He provided information about the security system, an armed robbery incident in the 90s, and his neighbor. He even showed detectives footage proving his alibi. Nick's behavior on the morning of the murder was peculiar. He was overly inquisitive, asking everyone questions and even questioning first responders about whether his father had suffered. While not inherently strange, his manner was unusual. He seemed excited, laughing, and joking during the investigation. One of the first things he did upon arriving at the scene was to inspect the window the attackers had used, which detectives found odd. Nick's financial situation also raised red flags. His parents had loaned him $30,000 to start his day trading business, which he had not repaid. They also covered some of his monthly expenses. This strained their relationship, leading to arguments in the months before the murder. Nick's parents hoped that when he moved to College Station with Jackie, her starting university might inspire him to pursue higher education as well. They provided him with $30,000 as a college fund, emphasizing that once it was gone he would need to find a job. However, the main source of tension was the monthly expenses they were covering for him. Although Nick initially repaid them, he stopped while still splurging on new clothes and flashy items for their apartment. This financial strain led his parents to cut him off, resulting in heated arguments. Eventually, Nick resumed paying them back and the family seemed to reconcile. Detectives, however, found the timing suspicious. They searched Nick and Jackie's apartment and discovered ammunition matching the bullets found at the crime scene, with 6 rounds missing. Further investigation revealed discrepancies in Nick's story. He claimed not to have visited his parents for a month before the murder, but phone records showed he was there 2 days prior. Detectives also found gaps in both Nick and Jackie's phone records, suggesting they had deleted information. Examining their other Apple devices, detectives uncovered incriminating texts indicating a murder-for-hire plot. On February 23, Jackie texted Nick, asking if the hitmen wanted $50,000 and stating they couldn't afford to pay half up front. On February 28, Nick asked Jackie to withdraw $1,000, which bank records confirmed. Nick's phone records also revealed financial turmoil and owed money. Texts showed their bank accounts had less than $2 each. Nick accessed his parents' security system at 5:39 a.m., 5 minutes before being informed of the murder. He was already monitoring the situation, despite having no apparent reason to do so. When questioned again, Spencer admitted Nick had offered to pay him to kill his parents, claiming he would inherit $8 million. Early in the investigation, Corey hired Rick Flores, a defense attorney, to protect Nick, believing the police were unfairly targeting him. However, almost 3 months after Ted's murder, on May 29, 2018, Nick and Jackie were arrested for criminal solicitation of capital murder. Corey was devastated, certain it was a mistake. She couldn't fathom that her son and his girlfriend, who had supported her through the most traumatic time of her life, could be involved. 2 weeks later, Jackie was released on bail, giving Corey hope that the case was falling apart. However, detectives believed Nick and Jackie had masterminded the murder and needed to find the shooters to prove it. Reviewing security footage from Nick and Jackie's apartment, detectives found video from February 28 showing 2 men entering the apartment. One wore a Renewal by Anderson t-shirt, linking him to the fingerprint found on the window from the window company. This man was identified as Cameron Vmeg. When detectives went to his house for questioning, his wife revealed that a man named Johnny Leon had asked Cameron to commit murder for money. Cameron had backed out upon realizing the true nature of the job. Detectives arrested Johnny Leon, who admitted Nick offered him $100,000 to kill his parents. Johnny claimed he went to Austin with Nick on February 28, but Nick couldn't go through with the murder. Phone records confirmed Johnny was at the Shaughnessy house during the murder, leading detectives to the second killer, Arian Smith. Initially denying involvement, Arian eventually confessed, admitting he fired the shot that killed Ted using Ted's own .40 caliber gun, provided by Nick. When the truth came out, Corey was shattered. It was undeniable, Nick and Jackie were involved. In just 3 months she had lost her entire family. Her husband was murdered by their son, whom they had loved unconditionally since adopting him. Ted had adored Nick and the betrayal was unimaginable. Corey had unknowingly lived with her husband's killer for 3 months. Nick, Johnny Leon, and Arian Smith were charged with capital murder, which could result in life without parole or the death penalty. However, in April 2021, they pled guilty to a lesser charge of murder in exchange for a 35-year prison sentence with the possibility of parole in June 2023. Jackie agreed to a plea deal, pleading guilty to attempted conspiracy to commit murder by terror threat or other felony. She received deferred adjudication, meaning she would be on probation for 10 years and spend 2 days in jail annually on the anniversary of Tet's murder. She started serving her time in June 2023 and is already out. In an interview, Nick claimed he wouldn't have gone through with it if not for Jackie. Corey found the sentencing pathetic, believing Jackie got away with murder. In her victim impact statement, Corey said, "My husband is dead, my life is over, I'm supposed to be dead and she gets probation." She also said, "We opened our home and our hearts to you, and you and Nicholas took everything from us. How long will it take for you to find another family to destroy? You are a monster, you are evil, and everyone needs to know it." Corey hasn't spoken to Nick since his arrest. Instead, she writes him letters that she never sends. Corey, despite her enduring love for her child, couldn't reconcile with the person Nick had become. "I really hate the person that he is now," she said, her voice heavy with sorrow. Nick in his interviews expressed deep remorse. "I wish that I could express how truly sorry I am and that the pain that I caused her was so selfish. I'm trying each and every day to be the best version of myself to hopefully show the world one day that is not who I am." He acknowledged the perfect life and family he had thrown away. His parents had given him everything, supported him in every way, and he repaid them by killing his dad and attempting to kill his mother. The case is truly shocking. The fact that they adopted their own killer is beyond comprehension. Corey had just lost her husband and one of their beloved dogs, and 3 months later, she had to face the heartbreak all over again when she found out that their son was the one who committed the murder. The Shaughnessy family tragedy is a haunting tale of trust betrayed and lives lost too soon. It reminds us that even in the most seemingly perfect homes, hidden struggles can lead to unimaginable outcomes. May their story encourage us to cherish our loved ones, recognize warning signs, and never take safety for granted. Thank you for watching today's episode. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to my channel. Your support helps me continue sharing stories that matter. As always, until my next video, stay informed, stay safe, and look after one another.